process of setting up my
okay, there we go.
microphone so you guys get a little bit better sound quality. So give me 2 seconds here. That was why I wasn't answering the first time.
Okay, no problem.
We didn't get that handout.
I have
Okay, I'll have it too.
I tend to induce microphone envy with this ridiculous studio microphone thing, but I've been trying to give people a better sound quality. So when I'm doing a thing like this, I bring out the big guns. Let me set my preferences here 1 second so I can hear you guys and you can hear me.
Hi, Dave.
Hi, how are you, Dr. Tammy?
I'm good. How are you doing tonight?
Very well. Just getting my microphone all the way here. Can you hear me all right now?
I think we hear you great. We have you on speaker, and we have probably about, 12, 15 people? 12 or 15 people here tonight, so we're excited to talk to you and pick your brain.
I'm glad to be here to help. I'm a little bit less illuminated now. Does that work?
Yeah, you look great.
You guys can see me. Hi, everyone.
Hi. So how's the weather in Canada?
Canadian. It's about 60 degrees, sunny. It's pretty nice, not too hot. Probably a little cooler than where you guys are right now.
No, actually not. We just had a temperature drop about 20 degrees probably in the last couple of hours, so I don't know what's going on.
Wow. That's incredible. I would have not predicted that.
Yeah, kind of crazy. So can you tell our ladies here tonight, we do weight loss and hormone balancing, and we are always looking for the next greatest and best thing in weight loss and hormones. And so I've got a few little questions here, but I just thought maybe you could take a few minutes telling them your background a little bit. I've looked you up quite a bit, and I'm probably becoming one of your biggest fans.
Oh, thank you.
I know you, but if you could tell them a little bit about you.
Sure. So I'm Dave Asprey. My podcast just got ranked #1 on iTunes in the health category, which was a total surprise because I wasn't actually trying to do that. It just happened the way those sorts of things happen. And the reason it's like that is I used to weigh 300 pounds. You guys just froze. Can you see me all right?
Yeah, you froze just a little bit there for a second.
All right, cool. So if you look like, I'm 40, and like, I just look like this. This is food. I exercise, 15 minutes a week. And
I think you have their interest.
I also sleep about 5 hours a night. And in fact, get this, for 2 years, as part of my experiments as a human guinea pig, I ate 4,000 to 4,500 calories a day. It's hard to do that. You have to force yourself. I stopped exercising entirely, and I only slept less than 5 hours a night. So sleeping less makes you fat. Eating 4,000 calories is supposed to make you fat, and not exercising is supposed to make you fat. The only picture of my six-pack that I've ever put on the internet was at the end of that experiment, where I'm like, no, really, this happened because I didn't have a six-pack when I started. The reason I'm telling you this is that I spent the first half of my life obese and feeling kind of guilty about it because I thought I wasn't trying hard enough. And it has zero to do with willpower, it has zero to do with trying. It has everything to do with biology and biochemistry and understanding what works. I know that when you're overweight, that you actually know you're overweight. And you don't actually like being overweight. It's shocking. And it's not because you're weak or lazy, which is what I always believed when I was younger. So throughout the course of my career, I've had a phenomenal career. Well, I was fat, but my brain started to get funky because my metabolism was broken. So I had low energy and I was tired. And I started spending money and time, it turns out 15 years and $300,000, measuring and upgrading myself so that I could keep my brain going and then I could make my body work better and I could deal with the arthritis that started when I was 14 that I don't have anymore. And about 3 years ago, I started writing about it, saying it's not fair that I had an early career success and I was in a position to spend all this money to get myself back to normal and then even higher. So I share that knowledge for free. There's 250,000 words on the site that you can just read. And I use a few specific supplements or food products I couldn't buy anywhere else. I manufacture those and I do sell them. I'm not here to sell you guys a bag of coffee or some of my collagen protein. I will talk about those things, but it's not going to change my world if you buy them or don't buy them. It may change your world, and if you do something else similar, that's good too. My mission here is to teach people how they can turn their brain on all the way, and when that happens metabolically, then you can have the energy it takes to have more willpower and to do whatever sort of emotional or mental or psychological work you want to do, because you may have an emotional connection to food, and there's nothing unnatural or abnormal or weak about that. But if you're too tired metabolically to even have the energy to overcome that challenge, how are you going to deal with an emotional attachment to food when you're too damn tired to get off the couch, to be perfectly honest? I've been there. So let's get the brain going, and when you do that, your body will fall in line with it. And those are the techniques that I use. Is that kind of the direction you're looking for, Tammy?
That's fabulous, yeah, and I love to hear that because I do exercise and I'm committed to that. But, you know, I'm busy, and if I could get around that, it's always a great thing. I think dedicated movement is really important, just to move lymph and stuff like that around. But, you know, that working out in the gym and really cranking it out hard hours and trying to build muscle, if you have a better way of doing that. Food is medicine, you know, if you can help us with that, that's great.
In fact, when I was 300 pounds, I worked out 6 days a week for an hour and a half a day, half cardio, half weights. I would get on the treadmill at a 15-degree incline, I'd put on a backpack, and I'd go as hard and fast as I could, and then I would lift heavy things. I stayed fat. I got stronger, and I even felt better, but I just couldn't lose the fat because inflammation was at the root of what was going on in my brain and in my body. So I'm glad you mentioned lymphatic circulation. I'm not saying that you shouldn't move. You will die if you don't move. We're not that unrelated to sharks. But movement isn't exercise. And I'm the former CTO of one of the companies that makes those wristbands that tell you how many steps you took. And I'll be the first to tell you how many steps you took is meaningless from an exercise perspective. You don't burn calories to lose weight. If you burn calories by exercising more, here's the secret: you'll eat more.
Yeah, hungrier.
And that's okay. If you exercise, you should eat more so your body can repair the damage that you just did by actual exercise. And exercise means working out hard enough that you pushed a limit, that you pushed the body hard enough to cause it to have to become stronger. Walking upstairs or going for a low-speed walk at lunch isn't going to do that. That is movement, and movement's good for you, but it's not exercise. And if you confuse the two, it's going to be tough. The exercise I recommend for people is high-intensity interval training, which means not necessarily that you go out and go for a sprint, because honestly, there's a lot of people in the room who probably haven't gone for a sprint for a long time. What it means is that if you're trying to do your cardiovascular system, you can do it on a bicycle. Works pretty well. You pedal as hard as you can until you want to throw up for 1 minute. I mean, as hard as you can, just like there's a tiger chasing you and it's actually going to eat you. This is what makes the body do it. And then for the next minute, you pedal slowly and pant and feel dizzy. You should pant and feel dizzy. And then you do it again. Just do it 3 times, maybe 4 if you're feeling really into it that day. And then you can look at all your friends who are still sitting there grinding away the miles reading a book, and then you can actually go home and have a snack. And you
so you're
will get,
literally talking 3 minutes.
Well, plus 3 minutes and 3 minutes off, just when you're starting. Eventually you want to be able to do 15 minutes, but I have a secret. 15 minutes of sprints, if you're not using a bike, you can do sprints. Like you run for about 400 meters, then you stop. If I did that 8 times in 15 minutes, which some people can do, I would probably throw up and pass out. That's okay. That's really aggressive. What I'm saying is just a few times, once, maybe twice a week, you really push yourself. That is the exercise you need. It's not because the exercise is burning calories, it's because that amount of exercise followed by food, very specifically, after you push yourself hard, have protein and some fat or even some sugar. Not high fructose corn syrup, sugar, and not very much. Ideally, though, you'd have fat and protein afterwards. The reason you do this is that you probably have too much cortisol if you're dealing with a lot of extra weight. Cortisol is a stress hormone. So what you can do is you can literally do this thing on a ideally a bicycle, not a treadmill, because the treadmills won't go fast enough, and then slow enough, and then fast enough, because they speed up very slowly. You do that, and then you really are going to want to eat more, and it's okay. You're eating to recover, and that food is not going to make you fat unless you're eating a ton of gluten. So what I recommend there is that form of exercise, followed by a daily walk, not a super high intensity walk, just moving around. And yeah, take the stairs if you feel like it, or don't. If they hurt your knees, that's okay too. The other thing that I'll do, and that I work with some of my clients who have been very overweight with, is called whole body vibration. And this is, in my mind, a better investment than a treadmill at home. And what it is it's a platform that you stand on that 30 times a second vibrates up and down. It causes massive improvements in lymphatic circulation. It gets oxygen throughout your tissues. It tightens up loose skin. And if you do this right, you're going to be dealing with loose skin. I say that as a guy who doesn't have loose skin right now, but I still have the stretch marks I got when I was 300 pounds. Those don't go away so easily without surgery. But it's really interesting that 15 minutes of standing on a whole body vibration platform will leave you sweaty, and it'll circulate the lymph, but it also has really strong benefits for bone density. This was designed for astronauts in the space program, and it's being used in some health clubs. They have these turbosonic $15,000 things, but you can get one that works in your home for about $1,500, or sometimes chiropractors or health clubs have them. It just so happens, let's see, I'll have to take off my headphone, but I'll show you what one looks like. If you guys want to see what it is?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
All right. First I'll pick it up so you can see it, and then I'll stand on it, and you could probably hear a little bit. So hang on one sec.
Hasn't somebody opened one of those shops in Denver?
I think I've seen that, yeah.
Planet Fitness has them.
It looks like this. Let's see, can you guys see what I'm doing here?
We can,
It's just a piece of metal that you stand on to vibrate.
What about those, can you hear me, Dave? I'm thinking like those bands too, they put those bands in.
All right.
What about,
hey
Dave, what about those bands? Have you seen those bands that go around your midsection and they vibrate you? Is that the same thing, or is that different?
Not quite. It's related. Those were around in the 70s mostly. But what we're doing with this is we're getting the vibrations to do this. And when they do that, it affects your skeleton. Whereas here, it's just the organs. So what you want is the whole body to vibrate. And what I'm going to do is tilt this down. I don't normally show off my floor, so my office is getting remodeled right now. So if there's dust, we'll just have to deal with it. And all right now I am vibrating, and you probably can't even see it because I'm only vibrating a little bit, but I can feel it in my whole body. And what's going on is every little bit of my body is getting exercised at the same time. All the muscles are tightening 30 times a second.
I can do this.
It's really energizing when you do this.
And how long do you do that for?
Most people won't be able to go for 15 minutes, so 5 minutes.
I could totally do that. That looks really doable.
And you can watch TV while you do it or something, but it's super energizing, and you work your way up to be able to do it for 15 minutes a day. It has a pretty powerful slimming effect. So this is one of those things, you can go for a walk, swing your arms, you wear a weighted vest, you can get lymphatic circulation. These are good for you, but if you don't like doing those things, or you're just not going to do them, or you're too busy to do them, there's nothing wrong with standing on a whole body vibration platform that is going to increase your bone density in a way that you're not normally going to access. It's the sort of thing that you would find in many chiropractors' offices. In fact, this exact one is used by chiropractors and sports trainers. to help people's muscles loosen up. So keep in mind, this isn't exercise, this is movement.
Right.
So it's sort of things like yoga and all, but you have to sweat and you have to be uncomfortable once a week. That's it. And that's what exercise really is.
Okay. You realize that this is completely opposite from everything that I've been preaching, that doctors preach everywhere. So you have to kind of give me a minute to catch up with this.
It's okay. When you're in better shape, you might even go twice a week. But excess, heavy-duty exercise, the kind of exercise that causes hormetic change, which is the scientific name for what we're trying to do. If you do that every day like I did when I was using all of my willpower to exercise and I still couldn't lose weight, what I was getting there was high cortisol. Because a lot of exercise, or even a lot of moderate exercise without enough calories, will raise your stress levels.
Sure.
The environment sends a signal to your genes, and your genes actually change in response to this. And one of the signals you can tell yourself is, it's a dangerous world. There's a tiger chasing me. And you do this by running all the time. You also do this by being stressed all the time, even if it's your email stressing you, or your job, or your relationships. So that kind of stress really changes your body at the genetic level, and some of this research was published in my first book. So if you're dealing with that, you definitely want to control stress, and excess exercise is a stressor, but not enough movement is also a stressor. So gentle movements, or this vibrational stuff works too, but anything that's gonna get your body out and moving, but it's not for calories, it's just for oxygen. Then what I'm talking about with the high intensity interval training, you can also do with weights. And there's only about 4 exercises, and I have those written up on the Bulletproof Executive blog. These exercises are the same for men and women, and you would do them with a trainer in a gym. And it may be you can only do 10 pounds, but there's a squat, and things that are basically like a push-up. Very, very simple exercises that put most of the load on the big muscles in your body. And things even like a pull-up. Many people are not in shape to do even a single pull-up. I know I wasn't when I weighed 300 pounds. And it doesn't matter if you're in shape for that or not. There's machines that simulate that. So you might only be able to do 10 pounds where you pull them down like this. If that's your number, that's just fine. So what you want to be able to do there is, if you're going to do the weight type of exercise, is once a week, instead of getting on the bike and pedaling really fast, have a trainer help you do it right, get on the Nautilus machine at the gym, put on as much weight as you can, even if you only do 3 or 4 repetitions. You want to pull it down like there's a shark underneath you, and you have to pull it down, and there is no choice about it. It's a matter of life and death. And
high intensity.
Yeah, high intensity. When you do that, again, you're only going to do these 4 exercises. You're going to do them once. You're going to do them once a week, and you're going to do them until failure. Which means 10 pounds. A lot of women like this. Oh, I wouldn't want to get bulky, so I'm just going to tone. So I'm going to put like 1 pound, and I'll just do this, and I'll kind of flop around. It totally doesn't work. Toning is a myth. Here's a hint. Unless there's a man in there that I'm not seeing, you guys don't make testosterone. That means you don't have to worry about arms that look like this. It's not going to happen. You will get toned when you do the things that stimulate muscle growth. You'll also help with things like osteoporosis and even like your stress hormone levels. So this is permission to go out and sweat once or twice a week versus to go out and sort of move.
Awesome. Hey, can you talk a little bit about how coffee plays into this? Because
absolutely.
And I love the intermittent fasting. I've looked up quite a bit with some of your
okay.
videos and stuff. So I think that's kind of the next lead-in, isn't it?
Great. Let's talk about coffee. Coffee is a thermogenic substance, which means that it increases fat loss all by itself, and there's good studies about that. What you don't hear about so much is that coffee also is an anti-inflammatory substance, which means that coffee turns off 2 of the pathways for inflammation in the brain. It's also the #1 source of antioxidants in the American diet. People often think, oh, I just have my red wine because my red wine has antioxidants in it. There's a scientific name for that, and it's called marketing, because coffee totally dominates red wine from an antioxidant and a phenol perspective. So the things you're trying to get more of are in coffee. The problem is that both wine and coffee can be high toxin foods. We all know that this red wine tastes better than this red wine, and this red wine might give you more of a hangover than this one, but there's individual variations. Coffee is the same way, and the coffee industry doesn't like to talk about that. So I make a coffee called upgraded coffee, where we've painstakingly gone through each of the steps of creating the green coffee bean to remove the parts where toxins form. And we've run a study of cognitive function of this coffee versus a mass market coffee with a green label. And we found that on 7 of 9 measures of cognitive function, there's a very large difference between upgraded coffee and mass market coffee. And the cost per pound is about $1 more for the stuff that doesn't have toxins. These toxins come from mold. About 28% of the population, 1 in 4 people, is sensitive and gets chronic inflammation when they're exposed to certain kinds of mold. And those molds are allowed in our food supply. One of the things that's actually really annoying is that Europe and Asia have standards for coffee where they test for a few of the substances that I test for, and they limit them, but there is no government regulation in the US. So the worst quality coffee in the world gets sent to the US because it's illegal to sell it in Europe, and it's illegal to sell it in Singapore and South Korea, and places like that. This is why you should control the quality of your coffee if you're going to drink coffee. When you drink good quality coffee, it turns off food cravings. When you drink bad coffee, it causes food cravings. And let's talk about food cravings, because how many of you have food cravings? I'm guessing like all of you, right?
All of us, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I can tell you, without a doubt, I don't have food cravings anymore. I sit in a room and you put a bowl of candy or a bagel in front of me, and I can look at it, and not even one little part of my nervous system goes, oh, food, you should eat that. Because the normal dialogue we all have is, candy, no, bagel, no. And you're using your willpower. We have studies now where we've proven that your willpower is a finite resource. You only have so many decisions you can make every day. And if you're sitting there looking at the donuts that someone brought in, going, no, every time you say no, it's taking it out of your decision-making bank account until you go bankrupt and you eat the donut. I know I've eaten my fair share of donuts when I was out of willpower. So what do you do about this? Well, coffee is a good way to handle this, and the recipe for bulletproof coffee, which I'll share with you in a second, has gone viral. There's 2.5 million Google search results for people talking about this. And by conservative estimates, there's more than 100,000 people starting their day this way. I invented bulletproof coffee.
100,001.
100,001.
100,001, that's me too.
So it's hard to imagine that a relatively small set of changes to a beverage that you drink most days anyway would have such a profound effect on your energy level, but I think the cravings might be the most impactful thing. Tammy, do you experience the reduction in cravings?
Yeah, I really have, and I've been doing the intermittent fasting, so I'm not eating till 1 or 2 o'clock, which is a complete opposite switch from everything I've been preaching and teaching, which is why I'm so excited to have you here tonight to actually explain this a little bit, because it's really counterintuitive to my thought process. But yeah, with the butter and the MCT oil, I don't get hungry at all until 1 or 2 in the afternoon, and then I have to really think about it when I do get hungry.
And for me, I used to end my meetings. So I was 27, and I'd have these meetings, sometimes with 10 people in them, and 11:45 would come, and I'd say, I'm sorry, I'm ending the meeting early because I can't pay attention anymore, and I'm going to kill one of you and break off your arm and eat it like a drumstick. So I have to go now. And I'd walk out of these meetings to go to the cafeteria, and I'd wait for the door to open because and these cravings are powerful things. They're biochemical. They're part of the way the meat in your body stays alive. And there's nothing wrong with a craving. Your dog, if you have a dog, also gets cravings because pellet dog food is junk food. So the dog's sort of walking around shaking, going, can I steal a bone? Can I eat that thing that came out of a cat? And all the things dogs do. We have the same wiring in our bodies that says focus on food because I'm starving. So how do we turn off the starvation signal? The way we turn it off is you take brewed hot coffee using upgraded beans, You add butter from grass-fed cows. Why that kind of butter? Because it's very different when you break it apart into its components than butter from a corn-fed or basically industrial cow. You can get grass-fed butter from Ireland. It's called Kerrygold butter. They sell it even at Costco now. Unfortunately, the Costco version has salt in it. Salt isn't good in coffee, but you can buy it at Trader Joe's, Safeway. I've bought it in just about every city I visited in the U.S., and I travel quite a bit. It's widely available, and you can buy cases of it if you live in the middle of nowhere.
Is this the cocoa butter, or the, how do you say it, cocoa butter? Is that what you're talking about?
I couldn't quite.
Is that the same as the cocoa butter or the cocoa butter?
The cacao butter comes from, it's basically the oil from chocolate. The cacao butter is a different animal. So the grass-fed butter, it comes in the refrigerated section. Very soon, I'll be able to ship you basically a purified version of the butter that doesn't require refrigeration. I'm working on that.
I've not been using the butter then. I've just been using that. And
no wonder you're feeling good. That stuff is really rich and delicious.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Is it a substitute, or do I need to really get the other butter?
You should get the other butter.
Okay.
And here's why butter, which, your grandmother or your mother certainly ate real butter, right? And we've changed what we feed our cows dramatically, and we've changed how we treat the butter, so it doesn't have all the vitamins and nutrients that used to be there. When you get a cow that eats grass, the grass is full of nutrients, and they concentrate into the butter, because the function of cow milk is to feed the cow's young, and all species will take stuff from the environment and stuff it into the breast milk in order to sustain the species, to give the most advantage to our kids. And we do this with our checkbooks, and we do this with our breast milk. Like, that's how it works. And cows do the same thing. So we get the most nutrients concentrated into the butter, but if you feed the cow crap, then there's not much left in the butter. You can still sell it as butter. It doesn't taste the same, and it doesn't work the same. The butter that I'm talking about has something called butyric acid in it, which heals the lining of the gut. And if you're significantly overweight, your gut probably has problems. It also turns off inflammation in the brain via a different pathway than coffee. And on top of that, there's two different ways to go. I make something called upgraded MCT oil, which is 6 times stronger than coconut oil for weight loss. You may have heard that coconut oil equals cholesterol, but coconut oil does not raise cholesterol, and it never has had cholesterol in it, despite the propaganda that started in the 50s and 60s from the American Soy Association, who was trying to replace coconut oil in our diet with soy oil. By the way, they succeeded with their propaganda campaign. So coconut oil is a good choice, but it's only 15% of the type of oil we're targeting. So upgraded MCT oil is 6 times stronger, or a relatively new entrant is called brain octane oil. This is 18 times stronger than coconut oil. So 1 tablespoon of this gives you the benefits of 18 tablespoons of coconut oil. You would feel very, very unwell if you ate 18 tablespoons of coconut oil. So people who experience a lot of brain fog and tiredness as they're working on weight loss use brain octane. Literally the first day, you can experience a huge boost in energy. Now, if you decide to do this, I would suggest you start out with half a teaspoon to a teaspoon of this oil. You put the oil in the coffee, add the butter, as much butter as tastes good to your body. When I started doing this, I would use 6 tablespoons of butter, and I was like, oh, I just need this butter. And my body just rejoiced, and you just get this huge burst of energy, and it's liberating, and your skin gets better. You can't even imagine the difference in the quality of your day when you do it. But when you add this little bit of the MCT oil or the brain octane oil, it turns on some of the cellular energy that may have been stuck. It's called the ATP mechanism or the Krebs cycle. This is how the power plants in each cell work. Those power plants normally burn sugar, but if you're overweight, you don't burn sugar very efficiently anymore. They can also burn fat, and when you take this kind of oil, the brain octane oil or the upgraded MCT, it helps your cells burn fat right away instead of burning sugar. And when that happens, stuff in the cells gets unstuck. So I've had people, particularly middle-aged women who are postmenopausal or basically perimenopausal as well. If you're overweight, your thyroid may be low. When you turn on your metabolism all at once, you're made fix your thyroid, which is why I recommend that women in particular start slowly. I have some clients who will take 2 tablespoons of oil a day, and they are rocking it. Dawn, who works for me, she is 62, and she opened the first 150 Starbucks stores. And she started doing exactly this bulletproof coffee. She started out with half a teaspoon a day, and now she's up to 1 whole teaspoon, and for her, that's the right amount. But another person who works for me, who's 56, uses 2 tablespoons a day. If Dawn takes more, it's too much energy for her. Okay, she's 62, she's working 14-hour days by choice, and she has to force herself to go to sleep at night because she feels so happy, and she has 1 cup of coffee in the morning. It's the oil, it's the butter, and you do it that way. She says, I feel like I did when I was 30. It's amazing. So this can be rejuvenating, like at a very major way. And butter, served this way, does not cause inflammation the same way that industrial butter does when it's eaten with a bunch of sugar and things like that.
On bread, carbs.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And the idea of intermittent fasting is also something that's kind of groundbreaking, right? If you have, say, a normal breakfast, which is a bowl of grape nuts, Wheaties, or maybe an apple, right? Maybe some low-fat things. Here's how food cravings work. Your liver, if it gets fructose from fruit, or it gets a bunch of the anti-nutrients that are present in whole grains, it says, oh no, I need to, as a chemical factory in the body, I need to break this stuff down, so I need fuel to put into the factory. There's 2 kinds of fuel, there's fat and sugar. So right away, you start craving fat and sugar. If you eat protein, the liver says, oh no, I need to break this protein down. I need fuel to break down the protein. So you better start having fat or sugar. What are the things that you typically crave? Fat and sugar. This is because you have too many toxins or even too much protein and not enough of the right kind of fat or not enough of the right kind of sugar even. What we're going to do though is train your metabolism to not rely so much on sugar, but to rely on fat as its fuel source. So you eat moderate amounts of protein and you eat lots of the right kinds of non-inflammatory fats. And when you do that, it's like your body wakes up. One of the ways to keep your body in fat burning mode is to skip breakfast. And this has been practiced by various traditions like the Chinese medicine and Indian Ayurvedic medicine and things like that. But even pro athletes now, a lot of the guys following me, I have professional wrestlers, mixed martial arts fighters, world championship poker players, people who use their brains or their bodies all day long. They're doing the bulletproof intermittent fasting protocol. And the reason is that normal intermittent fasting says don't eat anything for 18 hours every day, and then you can totally load up the other 6 hours or 8 hours of the day. That would be 6 hours of the day. I'm just doing my math. But if you do that, you get really tired and cold. And metabolically, this is going to be really rough. If you have 30 or 40 pounds to lose, it's going to be really stressful. You're going to feel quite ill. Your blood sugar is going to crash. So what works really well is instead of eating nothing, eat only fat. This is what bulletproof coffee does in the morning. Coffee plus fat. It's creamy and delicious. You blend it all up. It makes you feel great. Your body, because it had 0 sugar and it had 0 protein, it still thinks that you didn't eat anything, but you got all the energy. So it keeps your fat-burning metabolism running, but it gives you enough energy to feel good. And I've lost a ton of weight doing this. I would encourage you to try this protocol. It's all written up on the website. It's all free. But if it doesn't do much for you in terms of weight loss, and you have a lot of weight to lose, there's a reason for it. And the reason for that is called leptin resistance. If you're so overweight that your body not only doesn't respond well to insulin, but it doesn't respond well to another signaling hormone called leptin, there is a neat trick. And this is a trick that works really well for women, especially women over 30 or 40. And what you do then is, when you wake up, within a half hour after waking up, inside your bulletproof coffee, add about 30 grams of protein. And there's a couple ways to do this. You could just eat a couple eggs, and don't worry about the egg yolk. It's actually good for you as long as you didn't cook it all the way through. A runny egg yolk is going to help you enormously. and a well-cooked egg yolk won't. But a couple eggs, or what I do is I recommend collagen protein, because let's face it, collagen keeps your skin soft and makes your hair grow. It's also the structural thing that builds the lining of your arteries. Collagen improves bone density in some studies. So it's a very important protein, and it's one that's hard to get unless you're fond of eating a lot of Jell-O. It's actually missing from the diet in the US right now for most people. So I make upgraded collagen, which is the kind of collagen that comes from grass-fed cows that doesn't taste like gelatin. If you've ever worked with Jell-O, unflavored Knox gelatin tastes like shoes. The upgraded collagen is enzymatically processed, so it has a very neutral flavor. I put it in my coffee, and it just disappears. You blend the coffee in a blender, it has a head of foam like a latte, and you drink it, and it's just creamy and delicious, but now you've got fat and protein, still no sugar. So for some people, for 60 to 90 days, you may need to start every morning with protein if you have a lot of weight to lose. Protein and fat together in bulletproof coffee. And then once you've really established yourself on a fat loss path, then you can start not having the protein in the morning and focusing on, oh, I'll have a late lunch if I even have lunch today, and after that I'm gonna have dinner. Did I really just say you could eat only 2 meals a day? Yeah. And you can not only survive on that, you will not care about snacking. It makes you weak to snack, it makes you tired, and it makes you gain weight. Animals like us did not evolve to walk around with a bag of M&Ms in our pocket. Food is not that plentiful. If you go into the forest or into the jungle, you eat once or maybe twice a day if you're lucky. And that's what wild animals do too. So it turns out, once you teach your body to do this, or if you cheat and you just put fat in your coffee the way I'm recommending, it is liberating, because the power that food has over you all day long, every day, it's gone. I literally start the day with some amount of fat, depending on how hungry I am, in the coffee, and then I don't pay any attention to food for about 6 hours. And then in 6 hours I go, I could eat or I could not eat. It doesn't really matter. Like, do I have time today to have lunch? If I don't have time, I'm not gonna go, oh, I'm stressed, I'm starving, what am I gonna do? My brain is getting foggy, I need to snack, my blood sugar's down, all those things. I have lived that way for half my life. It's gone. So then, I think I'll have dinner, and 5 o'clock rolls around and I'll have dinner. And let me tell you, I'm gonna eat my 3,000 calories for dinner. I'll have a ribeye steak, and I'll have a sweet potato, or I'll have a whole bunch of vegetables with butter. Vegetables only exist to hold butter. That's the only reason they evolved. Because we're trying to get our fat up to 50% of the calories that you eat. And there's more information on this way of eating on the Bulletproof site. If you go to bulletproofdietbook.com, that makes a big difference. In fact, here, there you've got the old version.
Oh, okay. So I pulled this off the website. Okay.
Yeah, bulletproofdietbook.com. Okay. There's a new version. I just typed it into the little screen here if that comes up. The new version is what's coming out in the book that I'm launching in January, where I explain more details about how all this works. And I've made a few changes to it, so you should download it and print it out. It's also graphically much nicer looking than this one.
Okay.
I think it's actually a beautiful diet. But when you see it, I explain what to eat when in the infographic, as well as which foods are more inflammatory and which foods are less inflammatory. And quick question, how many people there have an iPhone?
I saw you have an app, so that's awesome.
Yeah, by the time my book launches, I will also have an Android app. So if you have any kind of phone, there will be an app so that you can avoid the other form of kryptonite. You may not be feeling like, Superwoman right now, but here's the thing. If Superman walked around all day, every day, and he didn't know about kryptonite, some days he would say, wow, I'm tired. And other days he would say, wow, I feel good, and he'd have no clue. And then one day, Lois Lane gets a ring with kryptonite in it, and he goes, well, I feel bad all the time, and I don't know why. I used to feel so good. Maybe I'm getting old, or maybe I'm just not trying hard enough. Okay, That's what's happening to all of us right now. And one of the big sources of kryptonite is food sensitivities, especially if you're overweight. There are some foods that make you weak. And for you over there, it may be corn. And for you over there, it may be wheat. And for you, it may be olives.
And that's a big part of my practice. We check that in a blood test.
Lovely.
So,
I was going to suggest a blood test.
Yeah.
You use the IgG, IgE panels?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So that means that you guys may not need the app as much.
Okay.
But if you want to test whether something at your favorite restaurant is setting you off or not, you use the app to test your heart rate before you eat. And then after you eat, you test it again. And if your heart rate goes up by 16 beats per minute, it means that something you ate was a trigger for you. So I recommend everyone work on getting those blood tests. It's so critically important that you know these are the foods that mess with you. Eggs are an amazing food. You should eat eggs every day, at least most days, unless you're allergic to them, in which case you ought to not eat them often, if at all. How are you going to know? No one's going to tell you. What if the eggs you're eating are causing that itchy scalp that won't stop? How would you know? Well, most people spend years struggling with this, and I certainly did. I've done a whole bunch of elimination diets, but now we have these amazing blood tests, and it's done. And there's an iPhone app to back it up, which is called Food Sense, and it's a free app that I put out there on the market because I think it's so important that people understand this, particularly kids, by the way. So now all of a sudden you have this infographic, which is one-page diet you put on the fridge, and it shows you these foods are more inflammatory, these foods are less inflammatory, and it lets you sort of have a slider. So I would propose, instead of testing one thing at a time, which doesn't work very well, for 1 week only, eat only the foods that are on the least inflammatory part of the diet. And what's going to happen is that you might feel weird for a couple days, and then you're going to feel like someone's giving you an enormous amount of coffee all the time. You're going to see your clothes fit differently. You'll see less circles under your eyes, and you'll feel enormously better. And at that point, you'll go, wow, that's kind of interesting. Maybe I'll experiment. I'll add one of the foods from the inflammatory side of the diet back in, or I'll have a beer, which is the most inflammatory alcohol of all. And suddenly I wake up the next morning going, I thought my clothes were loose, but now they're tight. This is a trick. Those love handles, the extra chins, most of that isn't fat, it's inflammation. Because it's not possible to gain 2 pounds of fat in a day. It doesn't happen. And if you expose yourself to something that triggers your immune system, including eating a food you're allergic to, like gluten, if you're like 80% of people out there, what's going to happen? Your body's going to swell up, just like it does after a bee sting. And you're going to say, well, my pants don't fit, my butt's looking big today, and now I have muffin top, right? All of that happened because of your immune response to your food, not because you were a bad person, not because you were weak, and not because you're fat and unattractive. All of those things are just what we're taught by the marketing industry, and it's not true. So figure out what the trigger foods are that cause you to be inflamed, because those foods are the ones that make your body go, there's something in here that I need fuel to fight it. So those are the foods that not only make you fatter, they make you eat more sugar, and they make you eat more fat in order to give you fuel to get rid of them. So they create this treadmill cycle that is really, really bad for you. I can tell you, I have a long list. I grew up in a house that had toxic mold in the basement. It wrecked my immune system. That's one of the reasons I was so fat when I was young. Like, there are lots of foods that, like, if I eat that, I'm going to either, like, go to sleep, so I'll be so tired, or I'm going to need to eat some incredibly sweet thing that isn't really good for me. And it's kind of like, what am I going to do? Do I want sugar to turn off the brain fog, or do I just want to avoid the kryptonite in the first place? And every one of you sitting there today has at least one and probably 5 or 10 foods that are kryptonite. And every single one of you should know that gluten is not actually food for humans. Gluten is wheat protein. If you're eating bread every day, it needs to be gluten-free bread, and you shouldn't be eating that many carbs anyway. The safest sources of carbs are on the Bulletproof Diet infographic. Sweet potatoes and white rice, not brown rice, surprisingly, are the 2 least offensive forms of carbohydrate. And the time to eat those, if you want to maximize your weight loss, is you eat those at dinner, or even better yet, right after dinner. So if you eat those for breakfast, they're going to raise your blood sugar and then it's going to spike. And then you're going to do the yo-yo thing all day long. You'll be hungry, you'll want to snack, and you won't have the focus you'd like to have. A breakfast of pure fat, or maybe pure fat and protein, is going to give you a much better quality day. And carbs at night are going to give you a much better quality sleep. And if you're not sleeping well, it's very hard to lose weight. So this idea that a little bit of carbs helps then, and for a lot of my clients, sleep is such a big issue that there's a whole set of posts about sleep hacking. In fact, right now, I think the Wall Street Journal just interviewed me yesterday about sleep optimization. So there may be an article that comes out soon about that. And it's amazing what works. One of the tricks that you can take away from this is that if you're on a low sugar, low carbohydrate diet, before bed, a tablespoon of raw honey, not cooked honey, it actually needs to say raw on the jar, right before bed, may help you sleep much more through the night. So if you have blood sugar issues, a little bit of raw honey, not a lot, raises your blood sugar and then raises the sugar stored in your liver just enough that your brain has more fuel to go through the night. How many of you go to bed on an empty stomach? Right, and that's to stimulate your body to lose weight, right? What if improving the quality of your sleep made you lose weight more than going to bed on an empty stomach?
We like that.
Well, if you don't have enough energy to fuel your brain for dreaming and for deep sleep and for making hormones, it's a problem. So some people do great on an empty stomach before sleep, but if you have a lot of extra weight, you might consider adding a little bit of protein, not a lot, just a little bit, before bed, or a little bit of fat, or better yet, both. So what I do with some of my clients is I have them do a tablespoon of collagen, the upgraded collagen protein, and a half a tablespoon, depending on their tolerance, of the upgraded MCT or the brain octane oil. And the reason you do that is that the oil is cellular fuel, and the protein gives your body building blocks to do the repair processes it does at night. I don't mean a meal. I mean just enough to give yourself raw materials and to give yourself some extra fuel. So for one group of people, a tablespoon of raw honey. For other group of people, it's protein and fat. Others, nothing at all, and they sleep fine.
And if you're intermittent fasting, does that negate that effect at all if you're like stopping eating at like 8 o'clock, but then you don't go to bed till 10?
No, you'll be fine. Yeah, as long as you're just doing a tablespoon, you're getting 7 or 8 grams of protein. You can also do some things with amino acids that are more advanced, but it's not necessary. So if you have really serious blood sugar issues and a lot of weight to lose, the odds are that you're not getting very good sleep. And improving the quality of your sleep is amazing. You can measure it by how you feel when you wake up, or if you have an iPhone, there's a free app, or maybe it's not free, maybe it's $3 or something. It's called Sleep Cycle. Sleep Cycle, you must put your phone on airplane mode when you're sleeping. Don't sleep with the phone turned on in your bed. That's just not a good idea. Partly because it'll stress you when it wakes you up, and also because you'll get all the cell phone antenna emanations you don't want. So what you do is you set the camera underneath your top sheet, or set the phone under your top sheet, and it senses when you turn over and things like that, and it'll draw a graph of how well you slept, and it'll give you a number. It says, you slept this well.
That's awesome.
You can very quickly learn, wow, if I do this before bed, I feel good in the morning and my sleep score goes up. And if I do something else before bed, like say have 2 cups of coffee, my sleep score goes down. What you will certainly learn is that on the nights when you have alcohol, even the one healthy cup of red wine, which isn't healthy at all unless you're a wine manufacturer.
Financially healthy.
Yeah, one's very healthy for that, for making money, but it's going to affect the sleep quality and it's going to push it down. So I'm not saying you shouldn't celebrate with a glass of red wine every now and then, that's fine. But if you're doing 1 glass at dinner every night, it is causing systemic inflammation over time, and it's not a healthy choice, despite the fact that I would like it to be.
Hey, I know we're running close on time. Can you speak just briefly on probiotics and yogurt? Because we think yogurt's healthy, and I saw on one of your blogs about probiotics, and I I encourage that for healing leaky gut with some other amino acids like glutamine and glutathione and that sort of thing. So.
Oh, excellent. Glutamine is wonderful for healing the gut and for weight loss in general. In fact, glutamine before sleep, if you can sleep after you take it, is a wonderful way to increase growth hormone levels. So I would tell people 5 to 10 grams of glutamine before bed. Just for a lot of people, it's so energizing that they just won't even go to sleep. They want to get up and clean the house. So let's talk about yogurt. The milk that we have today that they're using to make yogurt bears little in common with the yogurt forming milk that we've used historically. You can make something called raw kefir, which you ferment at home, and you need to go find raw milk from a cow that's fed the right stuff, and it's a very involved process. I think that's healing for the gut, for people who can tolerate that kind of thing. We have a bigger problem, though, in that most of the milk is from cows that are fed hormones and antibiotics, and they're fed grains. So what comes out of the cow has the wrong kind of fat in it, and then we further heat process it, which folds up the proteins in a process called denaturing. And when you do that, those proteins behave very much like gluten does in the gut. They can penetrate the gut lining as they're partially digested, and they make something called a casomorphin. And yes, that does sound like morphine, because they go into the brain and they activate the same opiate receptors that morphine or heroin do. This is one of the reasons that you like yogurt every morning, because you're addicted to it. Same as toast. Try giving up gluten and you will crave gluten the same way that someone who's used to putting a needle in their arm craves it. I kid you not. It took me 4 years in my late 20s to understand that if I ate bread once, I was going to crave it for a week. When someone says they've mostly given up gluten, the only thing I can think of is, yeah, that I mostly gave up heroin. Yeah, it was the same thing, right? So if you decide to go gluten-free, don't take baby steps. Do it and just say, I am going to do it for a month. And if I'm really in charge of my biology, here's a hint, you're not really, then you could just do it effortlessly, and you will need to apply a lot of willpower for the first week, and then gluten will lose its power, and casein, the protein in yogurt, can lose its power too. But what about probiotics? Your stomach acid, if you have it, which you need to have, it will kill the bacteria in yogurt. And here's something that is not going to be popular. There's 2 big classes of probiotics, gut bacteria. One is called firmicutes, and the other is called bacteroides. There's a test at the end, and you have to know how to spell them, right? Well, here's the thing that's fun. People who are overweight have excess firmicutes and no bacteroides. Lactobacillus, the stuff you find in yogurt, is the kind of bacteria that makes you fat. Bacteroides you cannot buy, but you can feed them. They eat phenols. Phenols come from coffee and colored vegetables and chocolate. So, if you take someone who's fat and you give them the gut bacteria from someone who's thin, fat people's gut bacteria, high lactobacillus, low firmicutes. Thin people have high firmicutes, low lactobacillus.
Oh, don't tell us we gotta eat food.
That is one way to fix this. Or bulletproof coffee.
That's better.
It feeds the bacteria that make you thin, and it makes life tougher on the bacteria that help you to be fat. So this is one of the reasons that I've had some people lose a pound a day for months on bulletproof coffee. Now, the truth is, most of the people who lose a pound a day at that level are men, because it's easier for guys to lose weight than it is for women. But women, there's lots of things on Facebook and all women who are on the bulletproof diet who lose at least a half a pound a day for sustained periods. But they need to keep their carbs low, and they need to get the protein in the morning right. Do they need it? Do they not need it? It's a matter of experimenting. And as a source of probiotics, yogurt is inferior because it doesn't get past the stomach acid, and it has this casomorphin effect, which makes you crave more. What works really well is probiotic capsules. I'm a big fan of probiotics that come from the soil. They're called soil-based organisms, and these work really, really well. And the most common brand you can find is from Garden of Life. It's called Primal Defense. And those work really, really well. There's another thing that I have links to on my website. I don't have the link off the top of my head. It's a form of yogurt made from grass-fed cows that ships to your house frozen. And it's the same cost as the yogurt, like the organic, good quality yogurt that you'd find at the store. It's about, I think it's $4 for 16 ounces, even though they ship it. And that stuff has a different kind of bacteria in it than the kind of yogurt that you buy at the store. So just this lactobacillus acidophilus thing is one of many different kinds of bacteria. The yogurt, the only one that I recommend that everyone I know, all but 3 people I know tolerate the yogurt very well, even if they're sensitive to dairy. It's 30 different kinds of bacteria. So you can make a healthy yogurt, but the stuff you're buying at the store is most likely not the healthy yogurt because it's made from the wrong milk, from the wrong cows, with the wrong bacteria, and they burn it in the process. So the good stuff is made from lightly treated milk from the right cows, they ate the right stuff with the right bacteria. In other words, yogurt's complex, and you can't say yogurt's good for you. You can't say coffee's good for you. You can't even say red meat's good for you or bad for you until you know, what did they do to the cow before it made the milk? What did they do to the milk? Same thing with the meat. What did the cow eat before it became meat? You want cows that ate grass. The cows ate corn. The cow is basically a margarine diabetic cow, and you shouldn't eat it. Cow ate grass. It's a delicious steak.
Awesome. All right. Let's see. How are we doing on time? Because I know you have some obligations.
Looks like I have a couple minutes here. I'd be happy to take a question or two.
Okay. Does anybody have a question?
Does it have this information on the website where we can?
One of the people is wanting to know if you have all this information on the website, and I've looked at the website pretty extensively. There's a lot of information there, so I'm going to answer it for you almost.
If you go to just bulletproofexec.com, that's bulletproof exec, like executive, just the first part of executive, it's all there. And if you go to bulletproofdietbook.com, and you sign up so I can email you when the book comes out, I will right away send you a copy of the new infographic. It's one page, you can print it, put it on your fridge, and you're good to go.
Anyone else?
Is coffee, can you use decaf or is it a regular?
Dave, she wants to know if coffee decaf or regular. Or do you have both on the website? I can't remember.
I do have both on the website. Decaf coffee is one of the most dangerous things to drink because we take the very lowest quality beans there are, the ones with the most mold on them during the processing, the ones that make you feel the worst, and then we send those to the decaffeinating plants because we know they won't taste that good after they're decaffeinated. Sorry for all the background noise here. There's a guy mowing the lawn outside my office. So decaf, it turns out, is one of the more inflammatory coffees. What I did is we have a whole process to test that our coffee is free of those things. We send that through a decaf process. So you're at least getting the high-end stuff you want. But generally, I would say if you're going to drink like from the grocery store decaf, you're better off to have no coffee at all than to drink that stuff. And if you're going to buy local coffee, there's a blog post on my site that tells you how to at least hopefully lower the level of toxins in it. But one of the studies that I did not sponsor, it's just a study that I found on the agricultural research side, found that 93% of South American coffee had the form of toxins in it that causes food cravings, that comes from mold formation on the coffee as it's growing. So we have some agricultural chemicals and processes, even things that are naturally occurring, that are affecting us in our coffee. So if you're going to do it, don't drink cheap coffee. Don't go to Costco or even Walmart to buy coffee. Go to a high-end coffee place where there's at least one guy with lots of tattoos and piercings and ask him what the best coffee is. And it's worth it. You will feel a difference throughout your day.
And Dave, what about people who aren't coffee drinkers? I was never a coffee drinker before this. I literally do it like juicing. I hold my nose and not that your coffee's not great, but just not the taste.
You're not alone. There's a bunch of people who've added a cup of coffee a day, which is good for you. You can do green tea. Green tea has some weight loss benefits. They're not as strong as coffees, but green tea has a separate set of compounds in it that are pretty good. It's also possible to mix green tea with butter and brain octane oil, and you will feel the difference from the oil as well. I just don't think it tastes quite as nice. One of the other things I do is I sourced this incredible vanilla. It's just pure vanilla beans that are finely crushed. And I will actually mix those in either canned coconut milk or just the butter, MCT, and hot water with a little bit of sweetener. You can use stevia, or you can use a sweetener called xylitol, and this is all on the website. Xylitol is a sugar alcohol that doesn't have bad effects. It actually lowers osteoporosis when you take it. And you drink that. It's like a sweet, hot vanilla drink that's quite nice. And there's a whole bunch of stuff you can do in smoothies. You know, if you're not going to do any hot beverage, you can do cold beverages.
Awesome. Any quick questions? Dave, thank you so much for being with us tonight, and it's just, I've learned so much. I think it's been really informative. I'm going to definitely change the way I do things, and I tell my folks all the time they're little guinea pigs, and they just are so patient with me of learning new things. But I think, you know, the whole thing with you always do what you've always done, you always get what you always got. So I'm always looking for new ways to do something different, and you're absolutely right up that alley with something different. So please keep up the good work. I can't say enough about that. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thanks for inviting me there. I've run a meeting similar to this for more than 10 years in California, and by having people come in and share this knowledge with people, you're not just helping all the people in the room, but all the people they talk to, and it is life-changing when you lose 50 or 100 pounds and you get your energy back. The weight loss is secondary. It's what happens when you realize you can have all the energy you want all day long and your emotions are stable and your energy is stable. So everyone in the room can do that. It's totally achievable, and it won't take you 5 years. It'll take you 3 months of focused effort with the right tools. So you've got a community to support you. Keep it up.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. You have a great
Thanks.
night.
Bye.
Now, what was his last name again?
Asprey, Asprey. Wow, that's all I can say.
Dave?
Wow.
Dave Asprey.
Dave Asprey.
That's incredible. What was he saying about the thyroid and like if you're going to be doing this drink and all
It's
this?
going to wake up your thyroid, you know, because that's one thing I've struggled with for years. I mean, this is cutting edge information. I mean, it really undoes almost everything that I thought, you know, as far as what I told you guys. We need to get your thyroid picked up, you know, and so we're giving you natural thyroid to try to do that. But if we can do that naturally, look at the sustainability of that. I mean, understanding these principles could take you through the rest of your life with a healthy body weight. And you don't have to be on thyroid hormone. You don't have to be on, you know, I mean, understanding what toxins are doing in your body and how bacteria is affecting you and inflammation and all those things. I mean, it's...
Is the coconut oil something he uses a lot of?
Well, that's one thing. That's one thing he talks about is there's like some contaminants and things in different coconut oils, and a lot of the oil industry, you know, I think it's really interesting because he kind of talked about the conspiracy of big business. And do you know what canola oil is?
Yes.
It's Canadian oil. Literally, it was just some sort of rapeseed oil that they got from Canada, and they got it really cheap, and so they had this mass marketing telling people it was really healthy, and it wasn't. So the oil industry itself, I mean the food oil industry is really adulterated. So coconut oil is the same thing. When you buy coconut oil, you don't know the purification process and that you're really getting coconut oil. But one of the healing processes that I've recommended to patients for the leaky gut, and we're going to talk about leaky gut here in a couple weeks, but is coconut oil. And so really you want to get a good refined coconut oil, but his MCT is that process, this MCT oil, and so it's what he said, 18 times more potent. And then he's also got this brain octane oil. And again, I'm not trying to sell any product, I'm just trying to further the information. And so if we can figure these things out, you know.
Now, are all his products on that website then?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I will tell you, there's a little bit of sticker shock with this. I mean, like the first time I ordered the coffee and the oils and everything was about $50. But you know, one thing that it's not bad. I mean, if you buy a nice coffee, you're looking at probably $12 to $15.
I was expecting it to be worse.
Yeah.
Is it like instant coffee or coffee beans?
You have to grind it. Yeah, you have to grind it. There's a little process with it, and then you have to blend it with the oil to get that kind of.
So what if you have a sensitivity to coconut?
Yeah. Right.
The refined process of his MCT oil, it's kind of like he said, even if you have other sensitivities, like if you do the really, even with the coffee allergy, it's such a refined process and a cleaned up process that you should be okay. So I wouldn't do coconut oil if you are allergic to coconut, but the MCT and the brain octane should be fine because of the refinery process.
And the vanilla stuff he was talking about.
Oh, yeah,
That's like,
good to me.
I've quit drinking coffee almost because I always dump like a half a cup of French vanilla creamer. You know, 1 cup a day, so I cut all that out.
One
But
thing
I would like to have some good.
Well, I'm a coffee
vanilla.
drinker, like I said, so I'm excited about the
Oh, I
vanilla, because I
love
think that might
coffee,
make it
so
taste a
I
little
can't
more
wait to
palatable.
order it.
But I'll tell you, my husband was figuring out one morning, because he's been doing this with me too, and how much do you think Brian's lost? I mean, he's lost like.
He's lost a lot.
Good 4 pant sizes since he's started.
Really?
This, yeah.
Wow.
And like you said, guys lose faster.
Yeah.
It's a testosterone thing.
And this is just drinking this coffee.
Coffee with this oil and butter.
Really?
Mhm. And he's been working out, but he does high intensity. He goes next door and he works out for about 20 minutes. So he does high intensity 4 days a week. He does that. So, but one thing that he was figuring out was how much money we've saved, because we're big. You know, we eat out because we're pressed for time a lot. We try to eat healthy when we eat out, but you know, you add up breakfast and lunch for a month. I mean, that's a significant, you know, savings. And then you just talk about inflammation. I mean, have y'all ever eaten anything and the next day literally you feel like you've got the muffin top? I mean, that happens overnight, you know. I'm like, what's? And then some mornings I wake up and I'm like, I feel pretty flat today. What's the deal here, you know? So I get that. You know, the quality of the inflammation or the inflammatory foods.
What I thought was interesting was when he was talking about don't do breakfast. Because I can, you know, like when I was in my 20s and 30s and hormones was level and everything was going good, I never ate breakfast. Never needed it, wanted it. I mean, it would be nice to get back to that, you know.
And what do we preach? I preach eat breakfast. I say, well, I've
Start-
been smart enough to say
I
start
have-
with protein.
Yeah, I always thought it started your metabolism for the day.
Yeah, that's what you've always heard.
Yeah.
Eat within an hour of waking.
Yeah, and you know what he was saying was, if you're having sugar or you're having protein, then your body says we have to have more sugar to burn that. So if you're just having the fat, your body just says, okay, we don't need to eat more sugar and protein to make the energy to burn that. So that makes total sense.
Reading your book, and I was reading about the vacuum cleaner salesman and all that with the insulin. So now, okay, we're saying, okay, every 2 hours you need to eat this little bitty meal. But what he's saying is no. So it's throwing everything out that we've been taught all these years.
And you know, and that's okay with me, because as I stand here in front of you, all I want is you guys to have the best result. And so I'm not gonna like say, oh, I wrote a book, and so I don't want you guys to hear this, because I want you to keep hearing, you know, what I thought was the truth. And so to me, that is the beauty of believing that if something's not working, you look for something different. And so for some people, everything that works for me, it works for me, but that doesn't work for everybody. And so a lot of us have different levels and layers of inflammation that have been tacked on over the years. Some of us had our hysterectomies, you know, later in life. Some of them had earlier, and so they've had imbalances and thyroid imbalances a lot longer. And I wish we'd had more time, because I was going to pick his brain about hormones and, you know, how all that plays in. And he's agreed. He was going to do 90 minutes tonight, and he could only do 60, so he's agreed to come back and do a little bit more time. So hopefully we can get him back in. And if I can't get him in this group setting, I'll try to get him just a little window of time to ask him about that, and then get that posted on the website so that you guys can hear that. And then I can convey that to you as well.
That's great.
They sell the butter that he was selling. They sell them at Sam's and Walmart, because I went to the website.
Yes.
I went to the website before, and I tasted, and I put in a piece of bread, and oh my gosh, it's butter.
Is it different?
And it's not
One
so
of these days
expensive.
it does not
It's
taste
more
like
expensive, but it's not so
Not
expensive.
terrible.
What was it
Yeah.
called again?
Grass fed
Carry
butter.
Kerrygold.
Yeah,
Right.
they have them at Walmart and at Sam's. Yes, that's the thing. And also, I want to ask you about what he said about glutamine.
Glutamine, that's an amino acid. We sell that here. It heals the gut. I have way underdosed glutamine from what he says. I usually recommend 1,000 to 2,000 milligrams. He's talking about 5,000 to 10,000. He's talking about taking that before bed, but it can be activating. So, you know, if it keep you awake a little bit. He says, you know, you don't have to have all that sleep as long as it's good quality sleep. But I would be careful with taking that much before bed. I'd probably start at about 1,000 milligrams and work your way up.
Because he said taking it before bed. Can you, I didn't get exactly what he said about that, taking it before bed.
Before bed. Well, one of the reasons is glutamine is great to heal leaky gut. And so leaky gut is basically where the intestinal cells have separated, and that's why your food sensitivities are what they are, because your food's being exposed to your food strain. So glutamine acts like scaffolding on the gut. So it decreases the inflammation because the food can't get exposed. So if you have a lot of inflammation, the body has to work really hard through the night to metabolize and work on that inflammation, and it creates cortisol. Well, cortisol decreases the inflammation, but cortisol will keep you awake. Have you all ever had a cortisol shot? It will keep you awake. I mean, it'll, keep you awake for days sometimes. So, I mean, if you have too much cortisol, it's kind of like if you've ever had a lot of stress right before bed, had a fight with your spouse or something, and you've got that cortisol just raging, and you've got some adrenaline going on too. You don't sleep very well. So, you want to decrease the inflammation. So that's what the glutamine does. If you've ever exercised really, really hard and you get really intense soreness in the muscles, that's inflammation in the muscles. That's not literally because you stretched a muscle too hard and tore it. It's inflammation in the muscle because you overworked it. And glutamine decreases inflammation, so that's why you can take glutamine for soreness and you've overdone things as well.
So you've been drinking the coffee and doing this intermittent fasting, and this is all on his website. And how long did it take you to get your supply once you ordered it?
You can do like a overnight. You can do a 7-day. The 7 day is like the cheapest one.
Yeah.
And so I just did the 7-day when I first ordered, but you can pay more for the overnight kind of thing. But it came really fast.
And is there a way that we could order like these quantities and save the shipping and get it?
Yeah, you can. I mean, that's what we did. And our second order, because we went through it, the first month, then we ordered like the big 20-pound coffee and we got it up in the freezer. So yeah, that's what we did.
But I'm saying if we're having it here for us, like maybe in a group or something.
Oh yeah. There is an affiliate program and he's got a wholesale program. So I'm gonna look into seeing if we can't get it a little bit cheaper and then kind of provide it to you guys, and you could get it locally and have access to it, and then give you a discount on it too.
Yeah, it's not so expensive, but I think we can get a little break.
Right, every little bit counts.
And I thought that was interesting what he said about the sweet potatoes at night, the night meals.
Carbs at night, to kind of fuel you.
And not during
Yeah. I'd always told carbs make you have bad dreams because the sugar will activate you and things like that. So that's a little counterintuitive for me too.
He was saying that it's like a blended, rich, creamy drink.
Yeah. It's because the butter and the oil, it just makes it really frothy and foamy, because what you do is you brew the coffee, you ground it, brew it, and then you put it in a blender. And we've been putting it in with a cocoa butter, because I thought that's what he meant. I didn't know the grass-fed butter. So we've been using like 4 tablespoons of the cocoa butter, so it tastes kind of chocolatey.
That's good.
So I learned something too there, so I haven't been doing it exactly right, so I'm going to go get some of that grass-fed butter. You said Sam's, and where was the other? Walmart. Okay.
What if you have a dairy, if you're allergic to dairy, do you think because it's a better butter that you might be able to handle it better?
Better butter.
Better butter.
The food allergies that you have are to certain proteins in there, and a lot of times with like dairy, some of that can be from some of the things that the cows are eating, and the same with other meats too. Sometimes your food sensitivities are what the animals ate before you got exposed to it. So I would think just in that nature that would be a little bit cleaner. If you do have the dairy allergy, and that's something I can try to ask him too, it might be better to stay with the MCT oil and maybe the cocoa butter kind of thing. But
so all of the stuff he has, they have no grains. They're just grass-fed. Is that correct? Because around here and growing up around here, you always feed out a cow, and then you give it corn.
Yeah, at the end.
You give it corn for 3 weeks to 4 weeks. But what I've been reading is corn has a lot of aflatoxins in it because it's stored in a bin, and it has lots of mold on it, which goes straight into the meat.
So where did you find the grass fed? be
I think you
around.
probably have to go to a butcher
There's ads in
or,
the newspaper every once in a while, you'll hear,
There's some farms in Maysville that sell it, and they sell it on the square at Bentonville too.
you know.
oh, and then you add in hormones in the meat and hormones in the dairy. I mean, so if you're getting organic, grass-fed, you're gonna be so much better off.
There is a website on the internet where they said they sell grass-fed meat. It's very expensive, and they sell it frozen, but it's supposed to be organic, and grass-fed.
Yeah, that's one of the problems is we think about things as being expensive, but when we think about our healthcare dollars, and you know, there's healthcare dollars you guys spend pretty much every day if you have insurance. You're not even thinking about, I mean, I think my healthcare premiums are almost $500 a month for my son and I'm not even counting that because I don't see that, you know, because it kind of just comes up off the top of our business expense. And so when you think about how much you're spending per month, and then you get sick or you have a high deductible, how much you're going to spend then, and then you know you don't feel good, so your energy and your productivity level is lower, your quality of life is lower, and so when you start adding all those in, everything's got a value to it. So I'm not saying you have to go out and go tonight just buying all organic and grass-fed and everything, but I think it's a gradual learning process as you kind of understand that these foods, these toxins and this bad stuff, what it's doing to your body. You start making better decisions, and then the more you know, the more you want to do and make changes.
And then if you're just eating 1 meal a day.
Yeah. And it's
You can afford
to
to splurge.
It's so true. I'm not hungry at all. It's crazy. I mean, today I had a few bites of salad, and I didn't even want that one. We went at 2 o'clock to eat, and you know, I'm not hungry now. I mean, I'll probably eat something tonight, but.
When he was talking about I think it was the app he was talking about, that you could put it under your pillow and it would tell you, is that just his regular app? I
I'm very
downloaded it
excited.
while we were talking.
Oh, you did? No, I'm very excited.
He called it sleep
It's
sense.
called the
He calls it
sleep
sleep
cycle.
Sleep cycle, yeah.
Oh, sleep cycle?
Yeah. So one of the
Sleep cycle
things,
app,
and
okay.
tonight was actually supposed to be about sleep, so we're gonna do sleep next week. We're gonna talk about sleep. Of course, that's gonna change everything we're doing. All this is gonna change everything we're excited, but we usually recommend that if you're significantly overweight, if your next circumference is more than about 17 inches, that your likelihood of having sleep apnea, or where you stop breathing a significant number of times, increases. We usually do a sleep study. So that's really exciting to me. That's something free you can do. If you don't have insurance, they usually charge $30 for the little thing. It measures your oxygen and your pulse rate overnight. But good grief, if you can just lay your iPhone in the bed and have a score, you know, and that will trigger us to maybe do a formal sleep study. Of course, most people, when they lose the weight, the sleep apnea goes away because they don't have all the obstruction there. But there are other forms of apnea, which are like central apnea related to like SIDS, where sudden infant death syndrome, that kind of thing. It's a brain stopping breathing. So you can do that multiple levels through the night. We'll talk about that next week. But it's not just because you're overweight. There can be central problems with the brain, and inflammation and foggy thinking and all that stuff can lead to that. So very important to be doing the right stuff.
I have a question too when she's through. Go ahead, no, you go ahead.
The MCT oil, do we get that through him?
I'm not sure where else you could get it. I haven't really done the research on that, but he does have it on his website.
So are you still getting the vitamins and nutrients that you need since you're not eating as much?
I do our vitamins.
So we do supplements,
yeah,
basically?
I do our vitamin pack that's got the iodine and magnesium, all that stuff in it.
And the how he was talking about the sprinting and doing, I forget how he worded it, but you work
high
out for like
intensity, yeah, I was talking about doing the
like my trainer at Planet Fitness just said that's like a new vein of training that people are doing that's really catching on.
Yeah.
And they also have that vibrating thing at Planet Fitness. It's a
oh, cool.
It's actually it looks kind of like a tanning bed that stands on its ends, and it shifts and moves for you, and it has it also has like infrared lights. It's supposed to be great for cellulite in your skin and that kind of thing too.
I'm gonna go
and it's like $25 a month. You use the whole gym. You get a free trainer, and you can use any of the machines or any of that stuff. And you can cancel it for $58 if you see you're not gonna do it, so Planet Fitness is pretty much
Hey,
right.
I thought I saw an ad in the paper just a couple months ago that there was an actual, like a little boutique that,
Yes,
that
there-
opened up.
I
Maybe
saw
that.
that too, but I don't remember where it
I
was.
think I saw
but
something on Walton.
They
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
Because there were like 3 people on the machine.
Rejuven Me or something like
Yes.
that. I think it's over at South Walton Suites.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's this thing or if it's the
It
actual
looked
bike.
like
Oh,
it
it
was,
was the
it
standing
had
bike.
little arms around like your, you know, you just kind of lay your arms up there while it does your.
Yeah, the Hawkins Wellness Center used to have that when John Hawkins was alive. That's right across from Arvest Bank, the one on the corner on 2nd Street. You come out of the drive-through and you'd be facing Hawkins Silks and Flowers. And John turned it into a wellness center also. And
Is
he
that
had those-
Rogers?
Pardon?
Rogers.
Downtown.
Yeah, and so I bought one, and, like he was talking, you know, there are all kinds of prices. Mine was, the low-end model was $400. So, but it's collapsible, and I can throw it in the car and take it with me on vacation.
Could you bring it next week and let us to see what it looks like?
Sure.
Okay, cool. That'd be awesome. Thanks.
Yeah.
Anybody else want to see it?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And are they still selling it?
Well, that's what he was, but John Hawkins died about 6-8 months ago, and his nephew has a place now, and of course they're getting rid of most all of those things, so.
Maybe they're even cheaper than $400.
Yeah, right. Discounted rate.
Well, the ad interested me, but I thought, oh, this is just a fad, you know, it's just a.
Yeah.
I think it's wonderful. The
Seems too easy.
osteoporosis, which I
Yeah,
have.
yeah, that sounds really
Which I
good.
cannot take Fosamax because of all the, so that would be great.
You made me think about hormones, because hormones and osteoporosis too is really important. But, you know, one of the things I have noticed, I didn't even mention, was I've cut my thyroid back, way back. Just even when I went on the folate that is in our supplements, I went back on my thyroid. But, you know, I've been a little too activated, and I thought maybe it was the caffeine, but, you know, and then I stopped my thyroid. So I'm only on a fraction of my thyroid right now.
What are signs of, like, what you just said, over
Thyroid.
activated?
Jittery, anxious, irritable, diarrhea, not sleeping, so that might be a sign to back off on the thyroid. Because, you know, I've always kind of pushed the thyroid, especially when you're trying to lose weight. So if you're going to really buy into this program, that's something to really be mindful of, that you might need to really watch that.
Obviously, you recommend the program.
I think it's really cool. I mean, I haven't seen enough that, you know, I'm still on the cutting edge, just like you. Some of this stuff is the first time I've heard it tonight. And so, you know, I think that time will bear out, you know, as you guys kind of try things. I don't think there's any one right way to do things, but I do think for those people who have been really resistant and tried a lot of different things, I've seen what I do really work, and then I've seen what I do not always work, because I've really been frustrated, just to be honest, with the exercise component, because getting people who are inflamed and tired and foggy and, you know, yucky just don't feel like exercising. And then we get into all that self-talk, I'm not good enough, and why don't I have enough willpower, and obviously if I were better, you know, and then you start talking to yourselves, and that's not good. So, you know, if we have something that works for people that, you know, they're not having to exercise 2 or 3 hours a day, stressing their bodies out, you know, I'm definitely open to that. So, yeah, I wouldn't say go and buy all the equipment tonight and order everything off the website tonight, because that's what we want to do when we find things. But, you know, what I do is, you know, think about it, pray about it, you know, just kind of move cautiously, you know, and if money's okay for you and you want to jump right into it, then go ahead. But
Well, for sure I'm ordering the coffee.
yeah, it's great.
I love coffee.
Yeah, I can
and
definitely tell you it's cool.
It's scary what he said about the U.S., huh? Woo! My gosh. It's like you can't buy anything at the store that's good for you.
That's what I was.
But it's all a money-making project. I mean, that's all it boils down to, is how they can make most money, so.
Because I read that U.S. food standards are very low in a lot of things.
So I guess what I'm saying is just have discernment about your process and what you want to do. But definitely this is something easy to buy into and just try. It's not going to hurt you. I've done it. I always, you know, it's funny because every diet pill, every diet thing that's ever come out, I've always been, you know, one to try everything, because I don't want to tell you that you should do it if I haven't done it, because I don't think that's right. You know? So, you know, I've seen some pretty good results, and I don't have a lot of weight to lose, but, you know, I've definitely found less inflammation. I woke up with a, you know, because I still do kind of wake up with that muffin top feeling some days, and
I've had more energy for sure, been more focused, so. And I've never been a coffee drinker, so this is a little bit different feeling for me.
Can we pay you to get the coffee and the oil and then have it shipped to you?
I think we could probably arrange that. Didn't see why not. Let us work on the next few days. Let's see what we can do with the wholesale program and the affiliate program, so that we could even maybe tell you a discounted price. So let me look into that and see what we can
I'd
do.
love for you to fix some of it one night, so we could just.
Okay, I'll bring
that's a
some
good
next
idea.
week.
Taste it and see. I'm not a coffee drinker. It smells wonderful, it tastes
Oh,
horrible.
I know, I can dip a cookie in it and it's fine, but just to drink it, it's like
Yeah, yeah. And it may be because of the quality of the coffee.
It's still, I still have a little trouble validating it because I can still taste the coffee and I've always just, I think some people are just, have different taste buds.
Starbucks coffee, ice cream is great.
Yeah, and he did mention the green tea, so you absolutely can sell the coffee if it comes to you.
Tea or coffee.
Vanilla goes in
That
the
sounds
coffee too,
great.
but.
The vanilla, yeah, I'm gonna order some vanilla. so
That might
we can
help.
try.
But if you have a coffee intolerance, or is sensitive to coffee,
To try it.
it'd be worth go ahead and try.
You know,
it.
jazz my coffee.
Yeah, and I think some of that could be,
And it
you know, to talk
Put
to
it
you,
down.
some could be that, yeah.
Very interesting on the yogurt.
Yeah, isn't
Yeah,
that
it's
yogurt thing? Yeah.
fascinating.
Well, I think that's very cool. Did y'all get that brand? Because I'm gonna see if I can find that
No, I
brand
missed
too.
that.
Which one
I've
was
got it right here.
It was,
I'm allergic, I'm sensitive to yogurt anyway.
Garden of Life Primal Defense.
Garden of Life.